Hey, everybody. If you could please rise. No, come on. So excited to get started.
Good evening. I hereby announce that pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the notice, which was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall, and filed in the Township Clerk's office on July 3rd, 2024. Mayor Impreveduto?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Ms. LaMountain is not here this evening. Mr. Lucarelli?
Here.
Mr. Romano?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. If everyone could stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. A moment of silence, please, for the men and women in uniform that protect us both at home and abroad. Thank you. First, we are going to, I see folks are rolling in. We're going to start off with a proclamation for the Holmdel esports team. I think I see them lining up all the way to the left. Wait for everybody to come on in, then we'll read this. All right. Here we go. Whereas the Holmdel High School esports team was established in 2023 as part of the Garden State Esports League, and whereas the Holmdel esports has emerged as a leading force in the competitive New Jersey esports landscape, and whereas the Holmdel esports team achieved a 7-1 record in their very first season, consistently displayed exceptional skill, dedication, and teamwork in their pursuit of excellence, and whereas after making it through 3 rounds of playoffs, the Holmdel esports team pulled off an astonishing win against Monmouth Regional in the state championship tournament. And whereas the Township Committee recognizes and celebrates the tremendous impact of esports on our student population and celebrate its continued growth and success. Whereas the players were led, supported, and encouraged in their endeavors and successes by Coach Michael Moore, now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and Township Committee of the Township of Holmdel that congratulations be extended to the following: Michael I., Kinshuk Damarla, Hunter Kamazinski, Zambal Garmev, and Duo Zhang, personally and officially on behalf of the residents of the community for their outstanding achievements. Be it further resolved that a suitably engrossed copy of this resolution be presented to the team as a small token of the esteem in which they are held, and be it further resolved that all best wishes be extended to all for continued success in all of their future endeavors. Thank you, guys, and well done. Why don't you come on up, folks?
Yes.
Congratulations. Good job. Have proclamations, copies from you guys. We'll get some pictures. Now, you guys started the esports team as well? Yes. That's awesome. So you guys started and you went 7-1. Yep. Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Do we have enough chairs for everybody? Are we missing a couple? If you guys want to fill in, I think there's a couple over there, maybe one over there. All right. All right, so Wendy, I'm going to get rolling, all right? Yep. Okay. So folks, as many of you have heard, wait till everybody gets settled. So as many of you have heard, obviously, we have a presentation this evening on the Vonage property from CHA Partners. As your mayor, I have promised to provide Holmdel residents with a transparent process to address the redevelopment of the former Vonage property in South Holmdel, and tonight is another step in that effort. Over the past year, the Township Committee has spoken to the property's owners regarding its future, while also engaging an ad hoc committee to obtain citizen input on potential uses for the property. As the ad hoc committee's initial presentation explained, the former Vonage property is vast, at approximately 90 acres, and contains a building that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 350,000 square feet that is completely vacant. Given just those two numbers alone, the redevelopment of this property is complex, yet necessary for Holmdel's future. We as a township had a clear perspective on what was needed, regardless of what type of development replaced the former Vonage World Headquarters. An expansion of public safety facilities, specifically for fire and EMS in South Holmdel, an increase in green space on the property, and an assurance that the aesthetic of the development is appropriate and matches our own Holmdel standards. CHA Partners sent us a concept approximately 10 days ago. The concept was then presented to the ad hoc committee last Monday, which was 7 days ago. In the continuing interest of transparency, the Township Committee has asked, and CHA Partners has agreed, to present to the public their concept for a continuing care retirement community, which would involve the adaptive reuse of the current building and restricted development of other structures consistent with the proposed use. This is being done so that the residents can hear further details on what CHA is proposing to develop. I must stress that this is the first of many public meetings that will take place regarding the former Vonage property. Nothing is going to be voted on tonight. This is simply a presentation. So now, with the table set, I would like to turn it over to CHA so they can present their concept, and we'll take it from there. Gents, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mayor. By means of introduction, my name is Bill Colgan. I'm managing partner of CHA. With me to my left is one of my partners, Joe Kelly, and one of our colleagues, Scott Barkley, as well from CHA. We want to thank Mayor and the committee for giving us the opportunity to actually present tonight for you. We'll start with a little bit about CHA. CHA originally came into existence in 2008, and originally we were known as Community Healthcare Associates. As we morphed and we did other projects, we changed the name from Community Healthcare Associates to CHA Partners. So we were founded in 2008. We've been based in Bloomfield, New Jersey. We own and operate 20 medical facilities, predominantly in New Jersey, but we have an outreach into New York. We have one facility that we opened in New York. We previously made a name for ourselves by repurposing of healthcare facilities, mostly hospitals. So in New Jersey, we have repurposed 5 hospitals. One of the hospitals was our first acquisition, which was in 2008, was Barnard Hospital up in Patterson. We acquired the Greenville Hospital in Jersey City. We acquired the William B. Kessler Hospital down in Hamilton. We acquired the Muhlenberg Hospital in Plainfield. And the last acquisition was Memorial Hospital of Salem County. In almost every one of those, our focus is really on preserving healthcare and jobs in the different communities. So that's kind of always been our mantra. We have extensive experience in healthcare and jobs, and we'll walk you through illustratively some of our project. We spend a lot of time when we go into any community really studying the needs of the surrounding area and look at healthcare opportunities. And when we look specifically at Holmdel, one of our focuses really became a state that has an aging population and a need to provide, if you will, housing through the latter years. We focused on what it would take for us to build a continuing care retirement community in this community. We've actually been under contract on the Vonage site for about 2.5 years, just to give it a little bit of an understanding as to how long this opportunity has been in front of us. Prior to that, we had made a focus on, and we originally were working with Ralph Zucker and the Bell Works project. And when that didn't come into fruition, and it was clear Vonage was relocating and downside, so we set our sights on the Vonage site. We generally are held in fairly high regard, and we say this with all sincerity. I think, Mayor, we've given you names of various towns that we've worked. That's always our best reference, because we pride ourselves in being good neighbors in every town we go to, not imposing, to a town something that the town is not willing to accept. We generally like to work with the towns to get to the right place. So we've done a number of public-private partnerships, and successfully, I want to say, where we've done not just one, but 2 and 3, in the towns that we've operated out of. So one of our sites, and we pulled a couple of illustrative. This is not, if you like to go to our website, you can see other stuff that we do. But this illustratively is one of the sites. This was over 100,000 square foot building. It was owned by Novartis. It's in East Hanover. We repurposed this building in 2020. This building was repurposed specifically with two of the healthcare services that we would like to provide here at the Vonage site. This had assisted living, short-term rehab, and skilled nursing at this particular site. It's a much more scaled-down version. There's not that independent living piece in here. This is more, care that takes place through assisted living and skilled nursing. One of the other projects that we're finishing up right now, it's an ambulatory care center. It's 140,000 square foot. This property is located in Totowa, New Jersey. Truly has the entire spectrum of healthcare under one roof. There's a cancer treatment center with 2 linear accelerators, really state of the art. It's a John Theuer Cancer Treatment Center that's owned and operated by Hackensack Meridian Health. We've done in partnership a surgical center with St. Joe's, urgent care, there are physicians' offices, there's radiology, literally every walk of life in healthcare, with the exception of acute care services that are provided in the hospital, are provided out of this outpatient facility. I think this site is probably fairly well known to everyone. This is the existing property. This picture was taken some time ago, obviously before it was the building was fully abandoned. I know everyone's generally familiar with the site, but I think it's real helpful really to take a Google Earth view of what the site looks like. Obviously bordered by Main Street and Holmdel Road. What you see here is a site that is, as the mayor said, 88 acres, 360,000 square foot building, and in actuality on this site, there's 26 acres of impervious coverage that currently is situated on this site. This is more applicable because the public, I know, a year ago was exposed to this drawing. So what we wanted to do was to just show the evolution of where we started and then talk a little bit about where we've come since this project was started. When we originally looked at the site, CCRCs generally work, the minimum numbers generally are somewhere around no less than 300 units. They generally range up to more in line with about 700 units. And the general composition of a CCRC is 70% independent living, 20% assisted living, and 10% skilled nursing care. Independent living is, analogous to senior living. People are healthy. They're not necessarily in need of medical care, but a decision generally is made when you go into independent living that you have now provided for each final stage, if you will, of your life. And so as if you deteriorate and as you deteriorate, you would move from independent living to assisted living to skilled nursing care. And this site contains everything on one campus. And that's kind of what you're seeing here proposed. But when we originally put together the number, we took the blend somewhere between 300 and 700, and we originally put on paper that we would like to have built 450 plus units here. What we've done by hearing a lot of feedback from the community is we became very focused on refining the project. Where we originally started with a 450 plus unit project, we scaled it down to the minimum, which would be approximately 300 units. That type of density is necessary because there's a lot of amenities that are generally provided to this community. And to get the amenities to work and be self-contained, there are minimum numbers that you generally will look for in that CCRC world. So what we did was here on this proposed plan, what we tried to do was to fully respect the borders along Holmdel Road and Main Street. We tried to contain the majority of the development within the ring road so that the ring road would provide an adequate, we'd maintain the buffers along the adjoining neighborhoods, understanding the sensitivity of all that. What we also did was we looked at a site that we could give back and donate land back to the township, hearing that an emergency response center, whether it was fire, EMS, whatever needed to be located on site, that we would donate the land to be able to build a site on Main Street. So that was incorporated into the project. And what we also did, given the sensitivity to height, we decreased the buildings. They were originally 4-story buildings, and we decreased 2 of the buildings to the 3-story height. So we decreased the height of the buildings. And what we did was we moved them away from the road and we moved them far back. So our plan here has 210 units of the independent, consistent with the 70% of the 300 units. There are 60 units of assisted living / memory care and 30 units of short-term rehab / skilled nursing care. The parking is important because elimination of a lot of impervious really has to do with understanding the parking requirements. Our parking requirements significantly changed to the parking requirements that were previously located on site. So the parking has now dropped down to 480 parking spaces. So just to illustratively, compare some of the site dynamics, parking currently on site is 1,477 cars. In its heyday, when it was Prudential, there were 1,500 employees that worked at this, 1,500 to 2,000 employees that worked at this facility. I think Vonage said they peaked at 1,700. There were numbers as high as 2,000 people when it was Prudential had worked at the Prudential site. So the 1,477 cars that parking would now be scaled down to 480 cars, a 75% decrease in the parking area. The impervious coverage was 26 acres. Now the impervious coverage would drop down to 21 acres, which is about approximately a 20% reduction in the impervious coverage. The head count, as we talked about, generally averaged around 1,500 people. Under the new scenario, there would be 540 people on site.
And Bill, if I can just pause for 1 second on this. The impervious surfaces, what you're really saying is we're increasing green space, if I'm not mistaken, by the reduction in impervious surfaces. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the 540 head count, that's inclusive of both residents and employees. That's effectively the maximum you'll see on a day-to-day basis.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, as we talked about, we were very careful to preserve the existing buffers on Holmdel Road and Main Street. Stormwater management, DEP regs from the time this particular facility was built, the DEP's regs have evolved. And so any new development that would be done on site is responsible for 100% of the stormwater management within the site. And so what we could assure you is that any concerns about stormwater runoff and how it potentially could have an impact on the surrounding community is not permissible anymore under DEP regs. So all stormwater management for the entire site would be contained on the site. The important part of that aspect as well is the impervious coverage decreases by 20%. And, that's always looked at very favorably by DEP as it relates to stormwater management. Given the nature of this particular use, it would have a significant decrease of peak hour traffic, which typically you would experience in Holmdel during rush hour traffics. And I think we've all seen how far, even back up on the Parkway, during rush hour, how congested the roads have been. Now, we all know people get spoiled. The building's vacant right now, so none of that impact has been felt. But if the building was repurposed as a commercial office building, it would have the potential to go back to its previous use. Generally, the way traffic counts are measured, they're measured from the prior use to the proposed change use. So there'll be a significant amount of, decrease in traffic that will occur. One of the things that we like to incorporate into any project are public use type of amenities. And so some thought was given, and further refinement will take place over time. But there will be amenities that will be open to the public. They'll be used by the community itself. But in addition to that, a lot of those, anywhere that we can take a particular use and make it available to the public, we would intend on doing that. There are incorporated into here walking trails, which would be available to the public. We will be heavily focused on making sure that the aesthetics, to the surrounding neighborhoods are preserved. We will make sure that those buffers are enhanced and, that those buffers get maintained. And typical, like we do in a lot of our projects, we always figure out some way to give something back to the community. So we, immediately would plan on making a commitment to donate the site that's on Main Street for the township's benefit. I thought it was helpful, just to explain a little bit about the type of community. We walked through the 70% independent living, the 20% assisted, and the 10%, skilled nursing. But generally, senior care has changed, and senior care has changed pretty dramatically. People are healthier in their latter years, and as a result of being healthier, they're looking for more vibrant communities to live in. So typical with senior care, as we talked about, is you have senior living. It evolves into assisted living, also memory care and short-term rehab. The focus really is on it being highly amenitized. And once again, you're trying to create a vibrant community, which is really what people have come to demand. So highly amenitized, social living has become extremely desirable, by seniors. These are, what we wanted to do was illustratively just give the public, Mayor, these are not exact drawings, but these are drawings that what we would anticipate and what the public can expect. And so we've thrown together a couple of renderings of buildings that would be typical that we would look. This particular building is a 3-unit cottage. If you remember the tannish color buildings that were aligned on the site, this is the look that those cottages would look like. This here, this is a building that we designed for our Totowa facility. This is a senior care facility that focuses on assisted living and skilled nursing care. These are three-story buildings. There are 2 of these buildings that are proposed on site, one which will be used for independent living and one which will be used specifically for assisted living and skilled nursing care. Once again, one of those buildings is tucked back behind the Vonage building. The other building is off of Holmdel Road, but it's pushed to the very, very back of the property. So it would not be, intrusive upon, Holmdel Road. So they're typical type of concept photos that we would expect the buildings to look something like. And then the last one, it's a very rough sketch, and I truly want to stress that because there's a lot of work that needs to be done with respect to the existing Vonage building. But this would be the type of look that we would look to achieve. We would get rid of the banded windows. We're creating a more residential feel to the building. There will be balconies that will be put on the building so that The residents would have an ability to come out and utilize the outdoor space. And the easiest way for me to explain the site would be the buildings are big square quadrants. And I know, Mayor, you've walked and some others in town have walked. But when you try to understand how this will translate into any sort of residential use, the only way we're able to actually do that is we're coring the center core of the building. And so we will build a courtyard in each of the quadrants. And those courtyards will give the ability for residents to have access to light and air in the internal. Because the floor plates from inside are fairly large from end to end. And so we would plan on cutting out. So the 360,000 square foot building would decrease by approximately 20% because we would be providing courtyards in the center of those buildings.
I think that's the last page. Thank you, Bill and Joe. I want to actually, a few questions for you guys, and the committee's going to ask you a few questions, I think, as well, if they have any. So, for starters, and I guess, look, just for public's understanding, it's probably not productive, or we thought about sort of how to structure this. We're going to ask Bill and Joe a number of questions. We are going to let them choose to stay or go after that. I don't know how productive it'll be if everybody in the room has a question for these guys, so we're going to try to get as many up front as possible and take it from there. We're going to sort of play this by ear a little bit, so I do appreciate you guys doing this and coming in. I guess a few things, and starting with the sewage facility on the property. There's some concern, I think, in the public about whether or not it can handle this type of facility with multiple buildings. The condition of that facility, if you guys could speak to us about that a little bit and your thoughts in relation to that, that would be helpful.
Sure. So DEP is fairly strict in its regulations, and everything is done by calculations, right? So the sewer treatment facility is calculated based upon the intended use. We have looked at, and one of the reasons why even the project is scaled down a little bit is because we've looked at the capacity of the sewer treatment facility, even with upgrades, and it can adequately handle what the project that's being proposed here without any significant changes to the current design of the facility. So sewer treatment is, once again, I think the public should put their mind at ease in that it's highly regulated, and DEP is probably one of the toughest groups in New Jersey to work with and to deal with. And the sewer treatment here is highly regulated and monitored by the DEP.
So the size of the facility you think can handle the development. Do you guys have an impression of the current state of that facility?
Yeah, so we still are, I mean, we maintain it, we're obligated to maintain it right now, and even though the building is vacant, the sewer treatment facility still needs to be maintained. And it's maintained, and reports are sent to DEP on a monthly basis. So the facility has not been neglected. There are improvements that need to be made, but the building is compliant with DEP regulations.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Yeah. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough. I know one of the concerns that I think a lot of the public is going to have is the traffic situation, right, on Route 520. And I believe, we have an existing building there. It had a pre-existing use, and and again, I firmly, I had a long conversation with our planner about this, and I think that can't be forgotten, right? Just because the building is abandoned or unoccupied, it doesn't mean that a new use is now where everyone's going to say, oh, it's gonna have all these impacts on traffic, because it could still be another commercial use, and et cetera, et cetera. But could you just maybe expand a little bit about on what you had said earlier about how it's not going to have such an impact on these peak hours, and how the flow would be with this proposed use?
Sure. So, with it being senior living, the vast majority of the people are retired. So they're not getting up and going to work and coming home during peak hours, right? So they have very little impact on peak traffic flow. Once again, the prior use of the building with 1,500 to 2,000 employees in the building, this would have 540 residents that will be traveling at different intervals during the day. So compared to an office use, I think this would be a welcome, if you will, traffic, addition to the town, compared to its prior use.
Hey, and Mike, just from my own understanding, as this process moves forward and if this gets in front of planning, zoning, et cetera, a traffic study will be mandated, environmental studies, et cetera, correct?
Certainly. We're just at the initial stages, like the mayor said in the opening comments, and we've gone ahead and asked CHA to provide this presentation on the front end before we're even in any potential discussions about a redevelopment plan, which is the mechanism that would allow for the rezoning of the property to permit a potential new use such as this. And as part of that plan and any further site plan applications that would have to be made, all the usual pro formas that are required, including what you just mentioned, Mayor, would take place, and that would all occur over a series of meetings, both here at the Township Committee and also over at the Planning Board. And there's a lengthy process that would need to be followed.
Thank you. Mike, could you talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, the process then as we go through this? Why don't we just pull that thread a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely, Mayor. So for the members of the public that are here, Holmdel hasn't historically been too involved in the redevelopment process, which is governed by the local redevelopment and housing law. The two instances that currently come to mind are the Bell Works redevelopment and also what we're doing with Crawford Hill for the Lot 7 property, with the other parcels being preserved for the horn antenna. Under the local redevelopment and housing law, it's really a kind of a two-step, three-step process. So the first step is determining whether or not the property qualifies to be declared in need of redevelopment, and what's typically called a blight study is completed. The Township Committee previously authorized the blight study to be conducted. The Planning Board planner has completed the blight study, and it is scheduled to be heard by the Planning Board as part of a public hearing at the end of the month. I believe it's July 30th. After that report is reviewed and heard by the Planning Board, it would then come back to the Township Committee, and the Township Committee would have the discretion on whether or not to determine if the property does in fact qualify as an area in need of redevelopment. If it does, that then activates the Township Committee's redevelopment powers, and that would include the ability to rezone the property under the redevelopment law, and a proposed use such as this would be approved through a redevelopment plan. That would need to be adopted by ordinance, which would require an introduction here by the Township Committee. It would then go over to the Planning Board for master plan consistency review, and it would then come back to the Township Committee, required public hearing, required second meeting to adopt the redevelopment plan, and then only after all those steps are completed, the Township Committee would also have to work out a redevelopment agreement with the redeveloper and also designate the entity as the redeveloper of the property. And after all those three steps are completed, that would then allow the redeveloper to embark upon a proposed redevelopment. And through all those processes, there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of opportunity for the public to provide input, and these things will all be fully transparent with everyone having access to reviewing any documents.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions from the committee? DJ, you're good? All right. So, Bill and Joe, you're welcome to stay if you'd like to. You're welcome to hightail it out of here if you don't. I do want to just, before you split, I just want to recap and make sure I have my facts together. First, I want to thank you for volunteering to do this. As the presentation highlights, I think there's a lot of ways in which the CCRC would actually be a lower impact than the former Vonage and Prudential complexes. I think the devil will be in the details as we move forward, and I think everyone can certainly agree upon that. If I heard you correctly, we are looking at a donation of property and or financial considerations to support the creation of a first responders facility in South Holmdel, a 20% increase in green space, a 75% reduction in parking, from the peak, from Prudential at its peak, it looks like about a 70% reduction in overall occupancy or head count. Access to public walking trails, enhanced stormwater management, 20,000 square feet dedicated to amenities for public use for anyone in Holmdel, maintaining and improving the buffers off of Holmdel Road and Main Street, reduction in traffic, as mentioned from previous use. And the other thing we talked about, and and I appreciate your interest in doing this, we did talk about connecting you guys with our Board of Education and school leadership. For those that don't know, CHA owns a medical school. It's not local, but we did sort of float the idea, and this will be better minds than mine can connect the dots on this. But we did float the idea to see if CHA, if this goes through, would be interested in providing accredited programs exclusively to Holmdel students that are interested in the healthcare industry, either through some sort of internship, work study, or distance learning through their faculty at the medical school. So we appreciate your interest in having those conversations, and I think soon enough, I'm not going to be the one to talk about it. We'll give it over to the folks that volunteer for that job.
Mayor, as a member of the ad hoc committee, I was under the impression we were going to be able to ask questions tonight.
You guys game to stick around for some questions?
General questions?
Okay.
May I? Or
Let's Jay, let me just give me 1 second, and then sure. As Mike said, I just want to make sure that everybody's on board, or at least aware. There's going to be a lot more opportunities for discussion and visibility as this project evolves or is tweaked along the way. It'll be public. Wendy, if you could please put this presentation up on the site tomorrow to make sure everybody has time to view it, and then we'll go in that direction. So Jay, if you want to come up, if you guys have questions, you're not leaving yet, fellas. Sorry.
Do you want to just suggest the comments come through you as mayor rather than?
Jay, 18 Ladwood Drive. Bill, nice to see you again. And I do want to thank you for,
Let's
Yeah.
give me 1 second.
sure.
Yeah, just to set some ground rules here.
Yep.
CHA's here very voluntarily, so, and speaking with the mayor up here, please direct your comments or questions through the mayor. He could then choose to refer them over to CHA.
Okay.
That would be the proper decorum here.
Yep.
These folks aren't here for a deposition, so we
Yep,
want to respect
that's
them.
fair. So, Mayor, having been on the committee and discussed the situation with Bill, I do want to thank him for taking some of our input into consideration into the revised project. Some of my questions would be, if this was to move forward ultimately, do they envision building it in stages? Seems like a big outlay to just do it at once. Do they envision enough demand? I would guess you do envision enough demand, but ultimately demand patterns change. If there wasn't enough demand for, continuing care community, whatever you want to call it, how locked down would these units be to prevent rentals? Because I know the community does not want rentals there under most scenarios. How locked down can that be? We all hear about a nursing shortage and a helper shortage. How will that be managed? Also, we hear that communities like this put a tremendous ultimate impact on EMS in such situations like that. Donating part of the property is actually very nice. What does the math look on that? Will we be able to staff it? We would obviously need a study on the impact on our emergency services. And those were some quick slides on styles. We've seen with another community development in town how bad some styles can be. If this project does move forward, I implore this committee to implore the other committees to make sure we take a very close look on what the styles of buildings look like, what the colors are. We have a project on 35 which has two completely different styles and colors right next to each other. And in the middle of downtown, you are colorblind, so in the middle of downtown Holmdel, we should not have projects that don't fully fit in beautifully. So these are all things that really need a lot of attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay, I'm going to take a couple of these, and Bill and Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you guys, if that's okay. One, on EMS impact and cost and infrastructure, et cetera, that is something that we certainly consider as a township. It is why we had the discussion with CHA about the development of a facility on the property. I think a couple of things. As we've learned, right, when we built our new firehouse, it's not just the cost, the capital expense of building the firehouse, it's the cost of staffing it, it's the cost of equipping it, et cetera, et cetera. This will be done in all likelihood via a pilot program, not dissimilar to what was done with Bell Works. We expect the revenues that come in. Number one, we will not shortchange the schools, to be very clear. They will get, at a minimum, what they get from this property, or we expect them to get at a minimum what they get this property now, if not more. But we expect the revenues that come in to help us assist with the initial funding of a first responders hub. I keep calling it fire and EMS, but call it a first responders hub downtown. That's the expectation. We will, again, as the devil's in the details as we go forward, we'll know better. Regarding colors and style, certainly aesthetic is something we've talked about, and I would ask Bill and Joe, as we move forward in this process, should we move forward in this process, street views or drive-bys of what this will look like. If you're traveling down Holmdel Road, if you're traveling down Main Street, will be really important. I think one of the things that was done really well with Bell Works, for example, is driving by, it looks the same as it always did pretty much. And we want to keep it as close to that as possible, which is why I appreciate the buildings being moved to the back. The current buildings front and center, development on the ring road. But if we need to put more trees up and more buffers and things of that nature, we need to have those discussions. So with those two pieces at least stated from my perspective, I'm gonna, Jay, I hope I didn't butcher your questions. Bill and Joe, first question is, are you going to build this in stages, or is this sort of an all-in-one effort, or all-at-once effort?
It will be built in phases, but the phasing is not so far apart. It's not something that's going to take over the course of 10 years. I mean, this is something that will fully be built in a 3 to 4 year time frame.
And based on your math, do you have enough demand to fill to occupy all the beds and units? And as Jay said, we're not a town typically amenable to rentals.
Right.
So can we put everybody's mind at ease on that, please?
Sure. So before we embarked on taking down the building, we did a feasibility study. And it's prudent, first of all, we can never get a project financed unless a feasibility study had been done previously. So a feasibility study was done, and the need was determined to be there. And so we moved forward with taking down the bondage project based upon the feasibility study that was conducted. Holmdel was of particular interest because of the socioeconomics of Holmdel. It lends itself much better to a for-sale product, quite candidly, than it does a rental product. But with that being said, for sale is not consistent with the 20% that we talked about, assisted living and memory care, and this 10% that's generally incorporated into the skilled nursing. So we would imagine the senior living piece of it being a for sale model, even inclusive in the building. They would be built as more in a condominium structure and our target has always been a for sale model.
Thank you. And then I know you and I think we've talked a bit, and certainly Jay brought up a good point. Staffing and the costs around staffing for facilities such as these days. If you can give the public some thoughts on that and how you guys manage that, knowing it appears there's a shortage of workers and the cost of them has increased significantly. And again, you've done your feasibility study, but if you want to talk about the economics of it a little bit, appreciate it.
Sure. So shortage of healthcare workers is something that we all deal with in healthcare every day. I'm not sure that fixes itself anytime soon. We were tracking this property before COVID, and COVID kind of changed the dynamics a little bit. It put people that were employed previously, put them into retirement early. There were people that were going into healthcare that chose different career paths. So yes, I mean it's a real problem. But nonetheless, healthcare needs are there, and I think we will it's supply and demand, and it just rebases itself price-wise, and then the rebasing itself price-wise ultimately gets adjusted, in market conditions to the various constituents.
And the buy-in, if you will, to this facility is not cheap, right? So
yeah,
you should be able to fund it.
Yeah. So once again, Holmdel was specifically targeted by us. Like we said, this goes back to our initial work on the Bell Works project. because of the socioeconomics. These communities require a more affluent, resident, and so that's always been our focus.
Thank you. Any other questions? And just a reminder, direct them here, and then we'll handle either here or with Bill and Joe. Sir in the black T-shirt, and then Ron.
Hi, Mark Levinson, 32 Willowbrook Road. I've probably built about 80,000 homes in my career, and I'm pleasantly surprised by what I saw today in the development. Just a quick question. Can this go to offset any of the low-income housing requirements that we have? I'm just wondering if we can finagle it if something like that were to happen.
I'm going to turn that over to our lawyer.
Yeah, there will be an obligation on the part of the redeveloper to assist the township in satisfying its affordable housing obligations. How that will specifically be done would be the subject of further negotiation, but there would certainly be provision in the redevelopment agreement to address that.
Yeah, that was it.
Thank you. Mr. Emma?
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. My question is, from the original plan, the cottages along Holmdel Road and 520, how many cottages, when you moved them to the back, did you increase the number of the total amount of cottages because you've reduced the number, the stories in the two buildings that you're building? So the question is, since you moved them to the back, did you increase the number of cottages? Number two is the donated land for the EMS first responders. Is it just the donation of the land? Rocco, you mentioned some financial considerations as well. Are they going to put up some money to build the firehouse or EMS station, or is it just the land?
I don't want to put these guys through a negotiation in public.
Okay, but just throwing that out there.
No, it's fair. It's look, we're still talking it through. I think what we'll say right now is they've agreed to donate the land, and Bill and Joe, I think, have committed to being good partners, and we will work with them as best we can for more.
Has the number of cottages increased to?
I don't have that number. If you guys,
It's basically stayed the same. It was at 48 on the initial plan, and now it's at 50. And we tucked them behind the building to provide more buffer, so.
Thank you. Just to counteract your comment about the impervious spaces, let's remember, they're taking apart the parking lot, which is, it's not really green space. It's going to be used for cottages, so it's not like open space. It's not going to be concrete. It's going to be grass, but it's not going to be open space that we can enjoy or consider open space.
Well,
It's not concrete, is what it is.
it's not concrete. So
It's
we're
not
getting where it's an increase in green space, right? Which is why we, it wasn't meant.
But it's not usable green space. It's going to be used for cottages.
It's going to have walking trails.
Yeah,
Walking
okay,
trails
I get that. But it's not a really great benefit by saying we're reducing the impervious space. That's what I'm getting at.
No,
That's all.
I get it. I think the way I viewed it, and
Yeah.
fair point.
Okay.
I think the way I viewed it is, again, trying to keep with the aesthetic and try to keep as much, for lack of a better term, concrete off the ground.
Right, exactly.
It's a benefit to us, is how I view it.
Thank you.
Now, people can have different opinions on that, but that's the way I took it.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a fact. You're stating a fact, not a, just stating a fact, not a sales pitch.
Mr. Trisquita? And then Ms. Campus, you can go next. And we'll get the gentleman over here after.
Patrick Trisquita, 56 Line Road. Very interesting presentation, very enjoyable. When Prudential in its heyday, it provided a lot of tax revenue to Holmdel. Now, of course, the vacant building is not producing anything. You alluded to a pilot. Is it the understanding that this whole area would be zoned medical or something like that, so it wouldn't pay taxes, and then the pilot would be revenue to the town, or will these units pay property taxes that if somebody buys them?
The expectation is this will end up being a pilot program, but Mike, I don't know if you look like you were going to say something. So
No, Mayor, you're right on certainly, I think, the committee's intentions. Just procedurally, if it qualifies under the redevelopment law, it would then allow the township committee to follow the long-term tax exemption law to negotiate what's commonly called a pilot agreement.
Right.
And I think you referenced earlier the zoning. The redevelopment plan would serve as the zoning for the property. And one comment earlier about color schemes and the like, I think the redevelopment law actually is a very good vehicle for the township here because it could provide much more direction to the redeveloper on how things need to look in a way that conventional zoning doesn't allow. So the township committee has much more power to enforce those types of considerations.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Campus?
know me by name, but I'll say it for the record, Francine Campus. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and I am very impressed with the developer, and I'm happy to hear that he's concerned about the residents and their concerns. I just have a few questions. The feasibility study, when it was done, did it take into consideration stuff that are not opened yet in Holmdel? For instance, the memory care center that's going to be built, and Brightview hasn't even opened yet. Because I'll be perfectly honest, in the mail, I get 3 things from senior living asking me to come, that they have availability. So they obviously aren't all full.
They're like 30 years ahead of their time with you, right? I mean, there's no, you don't even.
Thank you. So I am concerned about feasibility because it sounds like you're putting a major investment into it. So I am concerned about the feasibility study. The other thing is, mentioned there'll be 540 residents, but nobody has explained how many employees will be coming into that facility, because there's a number of other buildings doing other things there, visitors and all of that. So I'm concerned traffic-wise. When it was 1,500 and 2,000, I lived here. But remember, when somebody goes to work, they go in back then at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they didn't leave till 8 hours later. So traffic was only peaked at certain periods of time. During the day, those people were in the offices. They weren't around. This is going to be, from my understanding, constant movement. The people living in their apartments are not going to get up and stay in their apartment all day. They're going to be moving as well. Visitors, the medical facility. So I'm hoping a traffic study will take all that into consideration, because it is more than 540.
Actually, if I can just pause on that one for a
Sure.
second. Bill, I was under the impression it was 540 people, residents plus employees. Was that correct? 'Cause I think it was like 1.57 people per unit, and there's 300 units. That gives us 450 people, and then approximately 100 employees. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, so I think
So
Bill
there's only
misspoke
going to
earlier.
be 100. There'll only be 100 employees for
Is
that
that-
whole.
Yes, and, to address your concerns about, did you want me to answer, Mayor? So, if you were to open just a skilled nursing facility in the area, you'll find it's overbedded and it's not feasible. If you were to open just assisted living, you'll find that it's overbedded and it's not feasible in the Holmdel area. This type of senior care starts with independent living, and that's why we said there's 70% of the residents are senior living residents. And the 20% and the 10% evolve from internal, from within. So a decision generally is made that you start in independent living, and then if you deteriorate, you continue to move on. So we're not trying to recruit people into assisted living and skilled nursing care.
Okay, but when those people move into skilled nursing care, you are going to be getting other residents.
Yes.
To fill it. So, I hope you do, so that you make money.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that we got that clarification on the volume, the head count. So by all means, keep going.
Yeah. The other thing that I had, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't have too much, I don't know how to put it, reliance on DEP based on what's been going on in Colts Neck. They've allowed something to go through that really is, well, I can't make that comment, but I am not impressed with it. So I hope that you are looking at your sewage treatment plan, and that we are going to be astute to make sure that no new sewage plan is going to be instituted similar to what's being asked in Colts Neck, because that is serious stuff there that's going on. Okay?
Understood.
I don't know if I took up all my time, I'm sorry. But, I'm just concerned about traffic, the aesthetics. And the other thing is, those buildings you're going to put in the back, are they going to be taller than the current Vonage building?
I think the one building behind and the building up to the north are both going to be 3 stories. The current Vonage building is it 2 or 2.5?
Yeah, so there's some of those towers that go up are 3 stories, but the majority of the building is a 2-story building, and all the stairwells and the towers that go up in the corners are 3-story structures.
Okay. So the peak height of the Vonage building, if you will, has 3 stories, and the building behind and the building to the north will be 3 stories as well.
Not higher than that?
No.
Okay. And somebody mentioned about the EMS. I am concerned about that, the pressures on our EMS. These are seniors, and I know you have facilities there, but I am concerned about that also as well.
Absolutely, and that's why we want to get help down there, right, and have a facility down there. We just, we got to cross the Ts and dot the Is to
Yep.
get there.
Okay, but thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Blumenthal?
Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Just to follow up on your previous, I'm trying to understand the numbers. I did not catch all the numbers that they flew by. I'm pleased that you will post them. Just a question of a factor of 2. In that, typically with independent living, for sure, you can often have 2 people per unit, not just 1. And so when, on these plans, when it says units, that doesn't necessarily directly tell me how many people. But you're saying the 540 number is total, including those units where there might be 2 people rather than just 1.
If I recall the numbers I saw, and again, I'll go to Bill and Joe to correct me, I saw an average of 1.5 or 1.57 people per unit. So that times 300 units plus 90 or 100 employees gets us to that 540 number. But please, guys, clarify for me if I'm misstating or mistaken in that.
'Cause I think it's that factor may apply to independent, and a different factor will apply to nursing.
Which is why I think they blend it, but go ahead.
Yeah, and there are well-known, well-established studies, like the Rutgers studies, for example, that will quantify all these numbers. And generally, we've done a cursory count. We will do an exact count once we kind of get direction from Mayor and the committeeman on where we're heading. We'll refine and we'll recompute all the numbers based upon the science that goes behind these calculations.
And it'll be, and again, that'll be exposed and transparent, so everyone's aware of things.
The 500 number is a first
540
cut,
is a first cut.
First cut at all those numbers.
Could be plus or minus, I guess, a little bit, but it's.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. We'll be interested to see how this evolves.
Thank you. Mrs. Blumenthal, and get the whole family in.
Gee, don't cut it off at 1 per household. Jenny Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. I guess my question would be, what effect will this large establishment be on all the other nursing homes in the community and surrounding areas that are already chugging along? And we have the Potter Farm, Dementia Farm coming along in due course, and we've got the big thing on Route 35 already showing, have open houses for people to come there. I mean, aren't they going to have a hissy fit to have all of a sudden this big establishment right in their backyard that, because of its size, are going to overwhelm them, and people are going to say, oh, I'm not going to One Care anymore, I'm not going to the Willows, I'm going to go to this thing because it's brand new. And then they'll all be in trouble.
Well, I think they're in a competitive landscape, so I think CHA is hoping they win. But I will tell you this, and this is just probably a little bit anecdotal.
I mean, I don't know where I'm going to end up.
We'll hold the spot.
We're just going to save you a seat right here.
Yeah, I know, I always sit there, but anyway.
I will say this, and it's purely anecdotal. Holmdel is aging at a rate more aggressive than New Jersey, than the national average, and I think Monmouth County is as well. So I think Monmouth County has a more of an aging population. I think Holmdel is even exceeding Monmouth County. So I think so I can't speak to the mathematics that go behind this, but based on the numbers I've seen, within the past several months, there's probably more market here than one would believe.
Gee, the schools, we keep building them and worrying about the kids taking over the school, but the school population keeps dropping. So we got to worry about getting some money out of you to pay for the schools.
Yes, sir, in the back. And then you can go.
Gene Luciani, 10 Country Squire Lane in Holmdel. I have a question. I heard that the facility was going to be built in stages, but over 3 or 4 years. my concern is that if the assumption is that people will migrate from the independent living to the assisted living to the continuing care, that in the beginning, all the people will be in independent living, and there won't be any need for the assisted living and independent care at the beginning. So has there been any thought about that in terms of staging the development?
Yeah, and that's, you're exactly right. That's actually, when we talked about staging, that's actually the staging. You start by building all your independent living, and several years down the road, 2 or 3 years down the road, you'll build your skilled nursing facility.
And-
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, so, you know, I think it's also important to note, like, we acquired, you can't just open a nursing home. It's a licensed program in the state of New Jersey, and you're required to buy a license. We spent almost $3 million to buy the license specifically to be able to provide that care here in Holmdel. So we will, that is the third phase, and you're exactly right. That's how you kind of stage it in.
But I think the point though is, if I just may put a little bit of a bow on it, they're financially incented to make sure they get the nursing component done, as they've already paid the $3 million to get the license.
Okay, thank you.
I had Mr. G, and then I see some folks in the back.
Thank you. Ken G, 8 State Street. You can tell our mayor's really excited. It's the first time that we actually stood for roll call township committee. But thank you. That was very informative. I think the numbers changed a little bit, but the last number I remember is 50% of Holmdel residents are age 50 or above. So that's changed a little bit because the recent migration and all that. But yeah, that's a big captive audience, if you will. I think the bidding for Jenny's going to start right away. But second of all, thank you for putting, asking the clerk to put these slides on the website. We appreciate that. The one thing I think the township attorney addressed this a little bit, but in our ordinance, there is a fee for developers to contribute to affordable housing, depending where it's residential, commercial, different sets of fees. But as township committee members well know, our next round of affordable housing will begin summer of next year. And as you know, the last round, there's been tremendous pressure, and you guys have more insight as to some of the projects and so on. But I just want to make sure that we keep in mind some of that requirement coming up, to the extent whatever negotiation that's going to occur and so on, to the extent that it can help with affordable housing. Please keep that in mind. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it. Just for clarification, I think the next round really comes in the first quarter of next year, so it's actually sooner. It's been moved up.
July 2025 is what I
But we've got to submit the plan by February? Yeah, so we've got to submit by February. You know, that said, you know, we again will comply legally with, you know, whatever we're mandated to do, but there are options that we can pursue as well that are within the confines or within the letter of the law. So, you know, we're cognizant of it, and you know, we'll manage it as best we can. Does that do all right, Counselor?
Absolutely, and I would also note our special counsel that handles affordable housing, Andy Bayer, is involved in our process and discussions here because of the affordable component.
I saw some folks in the back. Yes, ma'am. The lady in the green shirt, then there was a lady to the right, and then Barb, I'll get you.
Hi, Diane Devine, 47 Stratford Lane. Just out of curiosity, what is the buy-in on an independent like this, living, you know, situation like this, and other than your initial buy-in, what do the various residents end up paying? Just curious.
You want to give a ballpark? Can you give a ballpark?
It's all regulated by DCA, and so everything's preliminary right now, so we'd rather not discuss numbers until we refine it. I don't want to.
Can I say this? I think the expectation is that there'll be a level of affluence on the independent living that is consistent with what we'd expect in Holmdel.
Well, because I have people I know that are in this type of a living, you know, situation. And it's like $100,000 to buy in. That's why I was just kind of curious how this all works. And then after an initial buy-in, do people then have to continue to pay rent? How does this work?
Yeah, I think that question's we will provide you all the answers. I just think at this preliminary stage, it's probably better not to talk about
Okay.
financial numbers, because there's a lot of factors that go into, like, cost of construction. Everything is done, and it's done in conjunction with Department of Consumer Affairs. So, make sure that people are safeguarded. And so we still have a lot of work to do there, but we will make publicly available and share that information.
Okay, I was just curious. You know, you got to plan for the future. You know.
Thank you. There's someone in the back. Yes, sir.
Hello, hi, my name's Bill Marito, 8 Eastbrook Drive in Holmdel. Look, I know this is a complex project and there's a lot of impacts in terms of, what services are needed from the town, et cetera, and yet there's money brought into the town. It's complicated. And then you have a pilot project which hasn't been negotiated. I get it. Can you give us a sense of what the anticipated impact would be on my property taxes, on everybody's property taxes? In other words, what does this do to Holmdel's existing residents' property taxes, if anything? Thank you.
I wouldn't anticipate, I mean, I can't, without getting the numbers down, I can't speak to it clearly or conclusively, but I wouldn't anticipate an impact, negative impact at all. Ms. Singer? I had you ready to go. You're letting people get in front of you now.
Okay, Patricia DeSaro, 20 Huntley Road. I have a question about the proposed redevelopment. Redevelopment and the pilot, those are separate things, correct? So you can be approved for redevelopment, but not have a pilot. Okay, so I and many other people in this town have felt the stress of the Bell Works pilot. And I know you mentioned if a pilot is done, which you think it's going to be, it would be handled differently. But because of that Bell Works pilot, the school system isn't receiving the same amount of money.
That's actually incorrect. Just to be very clear on that, because there's been a little bit of there's been an incorrect statement made about that. Prior to the development of Bell Works, and I might get the numbers a little bit, my numbers are going to be a little bit off, but you'll get the gist. There was something, I want to say, around $500,000 or $600,000 in revenue coming into the school district. After the development of Bell Works and all of the homes that go there, the independent living homes as well, I think there's about 40 of them, the revenues that go to those homes are taxed at the normal tax rate, right? So the pilot is the building, the pilot is the 55 and over. Those 40 homes over, if you're facing it from Crawford's Corner to the right, are at the normal tax rate. Those are bringing in, and again, my numbers might be a little bit off, but something to the tune of $1 million, $1.1 million to the schools. So you're more than double, based on that program, what the schools were getting previously. So I just want to make sure that we have that sort of standard and understanding in place, because there's a little bit of a misnomer or perhaps a different perspective on that than the reality.
Okay. But still, the houses in general, the other adult communities that we have in our community, they are not part of a pilot.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. So being approved for redevelopment and the pilot being separately, I feel that these gentlemen in this company are going to be building this if you approve them for a pilot or not. If this gets proposed as redevelopment and goes through all those processes, I don't think these guys are going to back out just because you don't give them a pilot. So although again, being in the early stages and we're going to be going through this for, I'm sure, many months, I would just like that to be on the table, that these guys are going to do this work. They've already put the time and effort into it. If you don't give them a pilot, they're still here. I would really prefer not to lose any money, any revenue that we could bring to our schools. As a taxpayer and a mother, I don't want to see what happened in Old Bridge, where they were going to be cutting theater programs, art programs, music, because they had to then increase their school taxes by 9%. So I would just like to say that there is that difference and make sure that I was correct in that if they get approved for redevelopment does not mean they automatically get a pilot. That's a decision the town makes.
That's correct, and that's why, regardless of what path it goes down, we're committed to the schools getting at least what they're getting now, if not more. We just have to see what the numbers look like.
Okay, thank you.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. See, now I only have 2 questions. Just as a thought, instead of the firehouse and whatnot, emergency services being on site, maybe something could be worked into this whole plan with the firehouse that's already on Main Street, that's existing, which is similar, so maybe somehow that can all be worked out with all the parties.
Yep, it's a fair
to
point.
look at that. And I do want to say, I love your idea about offering us something through your medical school. The high school already works with 7 or 8 universities where our students get college credits while they're in high school doing remote lessons, so that would definitely be a bonus. On the pilot, when you're saying the Board of Ed, and you're the Board of Ed liaison on this committee still, or that's now Joe? Okay. You're saying that they will get, at a minimum, what they get now. Well, now they're getting something based on a vacant building. Will the minimum they get be based on what they got when the building was fully up and running? Because that's a difference.
No, I think it's a fair point. When the property was valued at north of 34 million, again, don't hold me to the precise numbers. I'm ballparking. I think the cut for the schools was something to the tune of 450 or 500,000. Now that's closer to 380 or 400,000. I would expect, and again, we have a lot of steps to go through to understand what revenues this project will bring in. I would expect to be able to keep the school district at least whole on that. Like, so I keep saying at least whole because my personal opinion is it would be higher, but I'd feel more comfortable seeing the numbers when all's said and done.
And then that decision is made by the vote of this committee as to how much the school district would be getting?
If we go down the pilot route, yes.
Okay, and until that time, because now we're hearing that's a few years away, if there could be a vote on sharing some of the Bellworks pilot money with the school, if you see what goes on with their budget, I'm sure that would be very helpful to us.
Yeah, and what we've committed to doing is what we started, the past couple of years doing, which is offsetting costs where we can
Security,
for
I
the
know you
schools.
talked- yeah.
Security, lights on fields, we're looking to see if there's a way we can help out with assets for the theater program. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that overall Bellworks development brings in more revenues than it had previously because of the independent homes that are there, the single-family homes that are there. So more money's come in through that project, and we're contributing as best we can as a township to help out and offset costs for the, for the school district. And we keep having those discussions, by the way. It wasn't just a couple of one-off things. It's just easier and better managed when we can help out on a project-by-project basis as opposed to a blank check. Because I'm never sure we can cut a blank check, frankly, in terms
Okay.
of us being allowed to.
Just to point out that, yes, they might be getting more than they had been way back when. Healthcare costs and everything else have gone up, so it's not that, it's just a slush fund that is covering all their additional benefits.
We're getting hit with the same things. We're facing a 20% increase next year.
Yeah, no, I know.
We're all managing as best we can. Really, it's not being, we've worked hard to build a better relationship with the school district. That's why we're
Yes,
leaning in as
okay.
heavily as we are. We'll do as much as we can.
All right, thank you.
All right. Yes, sir?
Hi, Tom Wood, 20 Heather Hill Way. Like pretty much everybody here tonight, I came because we know something's going to happen at Vonage, and we hear the developers are here to give a presentation, and whatever happens in Vonage is going to be very impactful to the community for many years to come. So thank you also for giving what seems to be a pretty clear presentation. I appreciate that. I will say that I don't really understand the law around the blight study and naming the property as a property in need of redevelopment. But what little I do understand is that if that goes forward, and it sounds like it's on track, that transfers a lot of the authority for what's allowed and how the rezoning turns out and various things impacting the project from various committees in the township to the township committee. So the township committee will have a lot of power to manage the redevelopment, assuming that the property is named as a property in need of redevelopment. So what's very important is for the residents to feel that the township committee is carefully managing the process and looking with a clear eye at the thousands of decisions which are going to have to be made on the shutters and the trees and the people here who may or may not prove to be good partners, so that you are really looking at this very carefully. This is a big job for you. Unfortunately, what I've heard tonight is that the representatives of the Township Committee are on board with this project fully. That whenever anybody's brought up an issue, without even asking the developer to answer that issue, you've jumped in and said, oh, that'll be great. Let me answer that for them. Jenny asked a question about, you know, how much things are going to be and whether she's going to have a place and whether there's going to be too much supply in the area. And you're like, oh, don't worry about that. These other nursing homes will go out of business. These guys will do great. It's very important that we feel that the Township Committee is not fully committed to being bought into this plan right now, because there's a million things that have to happen. It could be really great for Holmdel. It could be really bad for Holmdel. But I, listening to the discussion tonight, did not get the feeling that the Township Committee is viewing themselves as a watchdog for this program. I got the feeling that the Township Committee views themselves as a booster for this program. And I hope that I'm mistaken.
You are. Just to be frank, I mean, I think I appreciate your comment and your perspective, and perhaps I was a little too flip in answering certain questions, but I think it discounts the work that's been done in the several months prior to make sure that we can get to a point where we even felt comfortable to bring CHA in front of the public for a conversation. We are cognizant of the fact that this is only the beginning, but it took us a long time to get to even a beginning. So again, I appreciate your comments. I apologize if perhaps I was too enthusiastic to answer questions, but I find it better when they're directed at me to try to give the answer instead of kicking it off or punting it. I feel like that's my responsibility up here to at least offer an opinion as a resident and as someone who lives in South Holmdel and who will be impacted by this one way or another regardless. So I think you can rest assured we are all, I think, skeptical to a degree of development in general in this town. We are all hell-bent on trying to preserve the culture of this town. And again, we brought Bill and Joe here because we got to a point where we appreciated they heard sort of the directives or the breaking points we laid out in terms of, to Mr. Emma's point, green space, fire and EMS, and things of that nature. We expect them to be good partners going forward, whatever path this takes. But we will be on this every day as we have the past 6, 10, 8 months, whatever it's been, 12 months.
Thank you.
On that note, guys, what's that? Oh, we have one more? Oh, there you are.
Roberta Kaufman, 13 Chestnut Ridge Road. I know there's only 540 people proposed for this development, but right now the development has an effluent output of under 20,000 gallons per day, because all it was ever used for, when I worked in the Prudential building, and I worked on facilities, and I know those buildings are 220 foot on a side, and that makes the windows a hell of a long way from any living space. We used to drill down through the rock to get to the electric and the low tension piece of the rock for Prudential. Okay, let me not divert. The point is that full-time, 540 people are going to be putting out 3 times the effluent that it's dealing with right now. This facility right now has a lot of notice of violations on it. It takes care of its effluent by sprinkling it on the grass, totally legal and most likely reasonably sanitary, but it does have notice of violations. So we have a process here that is going to be 1.5 miles upstream from the Swimming River Reservoir, approximately, as I said, with your numbers, and I didn't put the ruler on the map exactly, but it's in that neighborhood. It's on the Willowbrook, a Category 1 stream, feeding our reservoir. We're drinking that water, and we have for years, and I remember in 1991 when we all bought into the State Development and Redevelopment Plan, we made a commitment that the watershed here from the slope down, the southern 2/3 of Holmdel was going to be a low development, low-density area. And so I'm concerned that this kind of density, these 50 townhouses that are drawn on the backyard there, too close to the stream, too much impervious coverage, even so. I'd like us to take a close look at that. And I'd like to remind us that we can't wait, and as we all know with the Colts Neck Manor situation, we know we cannot wait for DEP to protect our watershed. We know that we have the availability under the municipal land use law for you people to require our applicants here to hire an independent engineering source other than Langen or somebody, a totally independent engineering source to review this effluent output, to review the quantity of water usage, and to take a look at this impact on our watershed, and I hope you will do that, or the planning board will do that, whichever vehicle comes about. But I thank you. One other piece of information. If I understand the new, not Mount Laurel, affordable housing requirement, 30% of those new units, and then there's a lot of logic to this, are going to be for school-age children. And this is, whether that is true for the new, or whether that's going to be true across the board for all of our affordable housing at any given time, I don't have that detail. But we're going to see a requirement for a lot more school-age children, and I think that's great, but that's why we can't take a look and say, well, we're going to have all these Mount Laurel eligible units because we're going to have rental. May I say one other thing?
Sure.
If I'm not, I'd like to make sure that the bill, and I'm sure you will if you've invested this kind of money in this, that we don't see the 50 fancy townhouses in the backyard blossom up before the building is fully revitalized for the existing building. And I'm looking at the drawings, and I do see the 2 hollowed out courtyards for 2 of the buildings, but I don't see these hollowed out living space courtyards for the other 2 buildings. So I'm wondering, want to make sure that the buildings are redeveloped in real time, because we're obviously not getting rid of them, before we have a proliferation of 50 townhouses in the backyard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Folks, so thank you very much for your comments. Thank you very much for your feedback. We're gonna let Bill and Joe off the hook now for the
you,
remainder
Mayor.
of the evening and let them split.
Mayor.
But guys, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
All right, Wendy, going on to the approval of minutes.
Approval for the May 28th executive and public sessions, the June 11th executive and public sessions, and the June 25th executive and public sessions.
Motion to approve.
Motion.
I'll second. Can I second as the mayor?
Mr. Foster?
For all of them? For all 3? You missed all 3 of these meetings?
No.
We're
We're doing all 3.
June
Okay.
25th.
The rest of them?
Yeah.
The rest of them, yes? Okay. Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes, but I'm gonna abstain. I was absent for the 28th or 25th, one of them.
Okay, 28th. All right, thank you. Mr. Romano?
Really
Yes.
got together today, guys.
Mayor Prevituno?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. Thank you.
All right, we have public comments. Oh, committee woman. Public comments for agenda items only. Hopefully non-vonage at this point.
Jenny Blumenthal, for the benefit of anybody over 16, what is an e-sport?
So
no clue.
Yeah, it's electronic. It's like video games, video game sports. But those kids, but let's just to be very, let's be very clear for a minute, right, and be very fair. You know, we give proclamations out for kids for athletic achievement, for academic achievement, and all that kind of stuff. These kids formed this team. They did exceedingly well, and so we thought they should get. It's kids getting to college on this now.
There was just a whole bunch of us that had no clue, and we looked it up on Google, and it wasn't even there.
Yeah, no, but that's it. So so we want to make sure we gave those kids their day. Yes, sir.
Ralph Blumenthal. Question with regard to item 179. This is one item that I brought up other years before. It's my opinion that this should not be on a consent agenda. That something as important as the annual audit really ought to be discussed by the several of you. We ought to get a report from our CFO about it so that the public is aware that the counting of the township is okay. So I'd appreciate a little bit of commentary from our attorney, from our CFO, about what the status of the audit for Holmdel is.
We will address that. I'll ask Bill to take that on when we get to our department discussions. Okay? Thank you.
Should you do that before you approve that resolution?
Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, the audit, it's a very pro forma action. It's required by regulation that they're acknowledging essentially the receipt of the audit. I'm not so sure that it needs to be carved out for a separate vote. I think if the CFO can address the audit, I think that's a great idea, and the audit will certainly be available.
Yeah, and we're just following past practice on this. So, Bill, we'll wait to your time later on to address it. But we're comfortable moving forward with it. As Mike said, it's a functional, operational step more than anything else at this point. Anybody else for public comments on agenda items? All right, seeing there are none, we move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Wendy?
Mr. Foster? Yes. Ms. LaMountain? Yes. Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Mayor Impreviduto?
Yes.
Okay, resolutions 2024-172 to 2024-183 have been successfully passed. Thank you.
Moving on to our departments, we'll start with you, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing of major import to mention. Bill will address any questions regarding the receipt of audit and the comments and recommendations from the auditor. The only item I have for tonight is to report that we submitted our Monmouth County Open Space grant application last week before the due date. On a additional note, excuse me, the pickleball project is rapidly coming to its conclusion. We currently anticipate, with the weather, good weather stays with us, that the pickleball courts will be ready for use on or about August 1st.
Fantastic, thank you. Mr. CFO?
Two comments. First comment, the tax bills hopefully will go out by Friday this week. Pretty close to being on time. Regarding the audit, what you approved before was basically that you read the comments and recommendations in the audit. Again, as it's been since 2020, there's no comments and recommendations in the audit. The financial statement that was issued by the finance office back in January, the numbers did not change in the audit report. Our fund balance for the end of 2022 was $7.7 million, and the end of 2023 is $9.9 million.
Great, thank you. Counselor?
I don't have anything, Mayor, but thank you.
All right, the engineer couldn't make it tonight, so we'll move on to boards and committees. Mr. Romano.
Starting with the Holmdel Library, we had 3,791 items checked out in June. We had over 6,566 visitors to the library. We answered over 1,010 questions. We added 427 books and items to our collection, and the quiet study rooms were used 214 times. June's book club was The Last Train to Key West. We had 10 patrons attend to discuss the novel. July's book club will be Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. All are welcome to attend. The library is sponsoring a chess club that hosts more than 20 players with a high this month of 31 players. The first Holmdel Speaker Series was held in June with Dr. Don Tao. There were over 40 people in attendance. The library held 10 storytime events with over 171 children in attendance, and there were 3 STEAM programs over the month of June with 20 children in attendance. STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. Board of Education, nothing to report. Schools are closed. In Holmdel Heritage Committee, no report for this meeting.
Thank you, Joe. Ms. LaMountain?
Thank you, Mayor. Community Development Department, there's nothing new currently to report. From our Holmdel Green Team, the Green Team met with the Administration Department and our Sustainable Jersey contact to review the preliminary work on our energy audit. The Green Team also met with Jay and Barbara from Administration to continue to explore electronic vehicle and electronic vehicle charger incentives. There is an upcoming meeting, August 5th, and members of the public are invited to attend. Those who can attend can also email their feedback or questions at greenteam@holmdeltownship.com. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Kim. Committeeman Lucarelli?
Thank you, Mayor. I complained a couple weeks ago that my I had like 4 pages of stuff, so this is what I got tonight. So I guess they took it a little too a
You
little
at least
too far.
got something. I didn't get anything this time.
It's like a one sentence. So my updates are: we have a big event that's probably one of the best events that the town puts on is National Night Out, and that's going to be held Tuesday, August 6th this year at Town Hall from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. There will be more information on the police department's social media. We had our large item drop was this past Saturday, was a huge success. Very crowded. I don't know the numbers yet, but I think the next meeting we'll have an idea how much we collected there. And then I just wanted to make one little statement. I know if some of you were impacted by the water main break. We've had a few roads closed. And they're fixed now. Unfortunately, we had another one today, and I know this is an ongoing problem with many towns in Monmouth County, but this is basically due to high volume this time of year and aging pipes. But I do want to thank our DPW and for getting and the police department for helping with detours and getting all these things done in a timely fashion, and the roads back open. So that's all I have for you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, DJ. Deputy Mayor.
Actually, nothing to report tonight, but I was down at the DPW large item drop-off this weekend. It was crowded. Our staff did a great job. And I missed the last meeting, so I just wanted to say a big thank you and congratulations to Victor Stevens. Wish him a happy and healthy and long retirement. He will certainly be missed here. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. I don't have much. I just want to tee up for next meeting for everybody. Jade, we should have Colliers coming in for the stormwater report for the readout on that?
That is tentatively scheduled. The date has not been confirmed on their end.
Okay, and JCP&L will be coming in?
Likewise.
Okay, and let's try to get American Water in here as well. We've had some, let's just make it a big utilities August event. So anyway, folks, to DJ's point, there's been some issues obviously going around town a little bit, certainly some brownouts and some electrical issues, obviously some water line breaks, and of course the stormwater report. So we'll take the next meeting, which is about a month from now, I think, 3-4 weeks from now, to try to get all our utilities, let's get everybody to take their medicine, I guess. So, but that's all I have. Moving on now to public comment. Mr. Yanello.
Jay Yanello, 18 Ladwood Drive. Speaking of utilities, and I said it 50 times, I used to follow utilities on Wall Street, and I know a lot about many of the utilities. I heard Ron making fun of me again. JCP&L is widely known to skimp on operating and maintenance expense because that comes out of their bottom line. If you want a new meter, if you want certain things, they go into your statements that say you save 4% versus all of that's guaranteed rates of return by the Board of Public Utilities. The new meters. But operating and maintenance expense, that comes out of their bottom line. That's why they've skimped on our distribution system over the years. The big programs to cut trees and everything, again, that gets bundled into rates. They're allowed a rate of return on it. But again, all this other stuff. The reason I bring that up is I've commented on the condition of our telephone poles for 10 to 15 years. Though I guess there was a problem with the one on the intersection of Shank Road, and yeah, it snapped or what. I mean, that thing was bending absurdly forever. I'm hoping the fix now is temporarily, and it may not even be JCP&L's problems, but you have now, as you're going up Holmdel Road, you have the new pole. It looks beautiful. It's not bending anymore. But you have this crazy, sick bird's nest of wires and internet and this and that. I hope that's not staying like that, because it's an absolute eyesore. It looks ridiculous. And I hope when they come in, again, this may be temporary. I'm not passing final judgment on it, but we cannot let that absolute disgrace stand if it's planned to stand there. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Impreviduto, Township Committee members, friends.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we just have your name and address, please?
I'm sorry. This is my first time doing this.
That's okay. You didn't make
My
people
name
stand for roll
is-
call like I did. It's
Yeah, I'm sorry. Nancy Moody, and I reside at 68 Bethany Road. So good evening, everyone. We've lived here since 2012. I'm here to present a concern about the safety of Bethany Road and ask for improvements to the situation. Neighbors of Bethany Road and friends in the Old Manor neighborhood have echoed their concerns as well. Our concern is that Bethany Road is extremely difficult to cross, either going across Old Manor or vice versa. Also the case at Chestnut Ridge. The only crosswalks are at Telegraph Hill or Holmdel Road. Between these crossings, Bethany Road is a straightaway that is often sped through by drivers. And yet, people live in this area. It's residential, it's a community, not a thoroughfare. On a personal note, my family has many friends that live in Old Manor, friends my kids like to hang out with, either at their house or ours. One of my children attends Indian Hill School and walks to the path on Chestnut Ridge. My children love having Ackerson as their neighborhood park to play in, which they access from Indian Hill School. These are all walkable and bikeable destinations, some of the features of Holmdel that make it so special for our family. Children of age should be able to explore there independently. However, living on the north side of Bethany, across from Old Manor, is somewhat alienating. My husband and I have to cross them from Bethany to Old Manor. There's less access for our children because of the volume and speed of traffic and the lack of awareness of drivers. Even while walking my son to school, which we have to do, anxious drivers have swerved to go around the car stopped to allow us to cross, nearly hitting my husband and child. So cars just are not aware of there being actual people crossing the street. They're too busy. My 10-year-old son today recalled a time when he had to wait 10 minutes to cross after school. Another time, though it seemed safe with the oncoming car quite far away, he started but had to go back to the curb because the car was speeding. Imagine being a parent and trying to cross your child in this situation every day. I believe Holmdel residents are understanding the call to attention here through Facebook posts that myself and other residents have raised. However, Bethany Road is traveled upon by people from all over, including tractor trailers, commuters, contractors, people seeking to avoid Route 35. Education needs to be much wider than a Facebook post. It's also worth mentioning that many people are crossing Bethany from Old Manor to go to Dunkin' Donuts, pizza, bagels, train station, etc. Commuters using New Jersey Transit, teenagers, walkers. In my opinion, this adds community engagement to our neighborhood, and that's a good thing. However, the parking lot situation at that plaza is another conundrum. Commuters view it as a quick stop, and they'll just stop there, and the traffic that it creates adds additional problems for pedestrians and the residents who live there. I'm almost done. In the past few months, there have been 4 instances on Bethany Road of either car accidents or biker accidents between Telegraph Hill and Holmdel Road. I'm going on memory because I see it, but we can look at the records. We have lived here for 12 years, and I can recall many more. one of which a car ended up in my backyard, and that car had to swerve because the car in front of them stopped to turn left onto Old Manor. You can see from my examples and perspective that something needs to change. Here are my asks. In the short term, more education, more signage for the area, more speed enforcement, and monitoring of traffic behaviors. And thirdly, a long-term initiative, but hopefully not too long, as safety is top priority, and the longer it takes, the more risk there is. A study should be conducted to determine risk and what kind of safety measures can be put in place, such as a speed table. Would that be a possibility? Can tractor trailers be prevented from using Bethany Road? Can a crosswalk be placed on Old Manor, on Bethany Road to Old Manor, on Bethany to Chestnut Ridge? Is a speed reduction to 25 miles per hour an option for that stretch of road? I trust by presenting my concerns and ideas for this improvement that this situation will be carefully evaluated. We should be able to cross the street safely, see our friends, make social connections, enjoy our community. Kids should be able to walk home to and from school, explore their neighborhood, and be home for dinner. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay, we'll see if we can talk to the chief if he has any.
Yes, just a couple of items. First, the governing body, you may be aware or may recall that as part of our NJDOT grant application for municipal aid, Bethany Road was included as our #1 priority for this cycle of grant applications. Just to present a couple of challenges regarding Bethany Road, there are portions of Bethany that are split jurisdiction between Holmdel Township and Hazlet. You may also recall that our grant application that was recently submitted for state funding is a joint application in coordination with Hazlet Township. So both communities have recognized the need for improvements there. And I don't recall the specifics, but as part of the grant application preparation, we did review the sidewalks there. My recollection is that there are sidewalks on one side, but not both sides. But I might request the opportunity to meet with Ms. Moody to review her specific request, and I could coordinate a meeting with the chief or through the Traffic Safety Bureau.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Jay. So Jay's easy to find. You got him. Ms. Singer.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. I'm in Old Manor, so 100% everything she just said. If you're trying to come out of Chestnut Ridge onto Bethany, you'll grow old waiting. You will. You have to wait till somebody, and people are generally nice who live around there, and they realize, and they'll stop and, let you out. But the traffic flow there, all over there, is horrendous. And you're right, there's a sidewalk only on one side of the avenue of Bethany there. But it's funny she brought that up because I actually have pictures. I was going to request on behalf of the Old Manor neighborhood on Telegraph Hill Road if we could have a crosswalk, because a lot of people walk up and down Telegraph Hill for their exercise and their dogs and everything, and they're running across Telegraph Hill at their peril. There is a crosswalk further up. I forget the name of Hayward Hills. So that community, so if we could just have another one of those like closer down toward, there's only like Deerfield, Mayfair, and one other street there that would be options, but that would be really helpful for the people who live lower down toward the other end of the road there. And then one other thing we were talking about, at Bell Works, going toward the high school at Roberts Road, there's no like actual crosswalk across Crawford's Hill from Roberts Road. Is that right? I'm getting
By
that
Roberts
right?
Road at Crawford's Corner.
Yeah.
Cross over to Bellworks?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
That
take
was
a
it.
look.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Chiskita? It depends on the audience, yeah.
Patrick Triskita, 56 Line Road. First, I want to comment to Joe on the chess club. There's a lot of new members now, and I've been playing chess now for 50 years, and now regularly get beat by 8-year-olds at the chess club. So it's it's really doing well.
We're doing really great things with the library.
Yes, they are. Yes, when this goes over, and still would love to see Sunday hours at the library. Would be great. Unions be damned. My comment is just, is there anything new on the development of Robert Wilson Park?
I had a feeling that was going to be the question. I don't know if we have any updates from the last meeting.
No real update other than with holiday or vacation schedules, we've been unable to actually have the first meeting that we expected with the historic preservation folks. So once we schedule that, I'll be able to, we'll know better where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Wait.
What did I do?
It's okay. For the members of the Township Committee, we're looking for a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel, legal advice, and real property. The Township Committee does reserve the right to come back out of executive session to take personnel actions, but no other formal action is anticipated. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.